Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church, and I'm here today on a Friday, the end of 2 weeks of talking about Peter's letters. And today I'm going to talk about something that hasn't been mentioned before, and something maybe have thought about, maybe you haven't. It comes from 2 Peter chapter 3 and beginning with verse 10. And it says this: But the day of the Lord will come as unexpectedly as a thief. Then the heavens will pass away with a terrible noise, and the very elements themselves will disappear in fire, and the earth and everything on it will be found to deserve judgment. Let's stop there a second. This is a good sci-fi idea right here. The day of the Lord will come. What is the day of the Lord? Well, according to scriptures, it's a day that the world ends and God judges everybody and everything. It's a cataclysmic day. I mean, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. When we watch a volcano erupt or a tsunami hit or an earthquake, and people talk about the power of nature. Sometimes they talk about Mother Earth and how powerful she is. And in fact, those things are more powerful than anything man has ever invented. And they're really awful. If you know history, the city of Pompeii was completely covered in ash, and almost nobody escaped. It was so sudden. Just the power of that volcano destroyed everything. And the imagery of the day of the Lord is the day when all of life comes to the throne of God under judgment. Now, I grant you, this is not a really pleasant day. It's not depicted that way, not even supposed to be that way. But the good news is it doesn't end. That's not the end of the story. It doesn't end that way. It says the heavens and earth will pass away, everything will disappear. And since everything around us is going to be destroyed, I mean, that's the key. What holy and godly lives you should live, looking forward to the day of the Lord and hurrying it along. Now, why would I look forward to that day when everything gets upended and uprooted and destroyed, and the world as I've ever known it is ended? Now, hopefully that day's not going to come tomorrow. I say hopefully because, I kind of like living here. I'm not satisfied in that. I don't look for more, but I'm okay with it. And I'm not anxious for it to end. But if it does end, then the key is living godly lives so that you're prepared for that day. Now, I've heard a lot of preachers preach sermons to try to scare you into heaven. And they talk about this day. Oh, you better get your life right with God. And even in their best portrayal of how awful it is, they're still right. You really do. It says we should live a godly life, regardless of when the day is coming. There's a bus near me, and it's the back of it. I'm not sure what group it's associated with, but the back of it has a saying in Spanish, Cristo ya viene. And what it says is Jesus is coming now. And that's a good thought to keep in mind because we really don't know when that's going to happen. We do know it will happen. And just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it's not going to. So live godly lives, it says. Now, you and I have lived our lives, some of us towards the end of it, some of us towards the beginning of it. And only you can look at your life. I mean, I can tell you some things, but in the end, it's up to you. You have to think about, examine your own life and where you stand with God. Now, of course, I want to urge you to get on it. Get on it post haste, as some have said. But the point of all of this is if we live our lives walking with God, the, the day of the Lord is going to be a reward day, not a punishment day. It's a reward day because it goes on to say here, and the book of Revelation says some more. It says, on that day, this would be verse 12. On that day, he will set the heavens on fire, the elements will melt away in the flames. But we are looking forward to the new heavens and the new earth that has been promised, a world filled with God's righteousness. You see, God never, ever doesn't offer an alternative. We can look forward to the day of the new heaven and the new earth. And some of you say, well, I don't think I want to go there. Don't you want to live in a world where there's no sorrow, where there's no crying, where there's no sickness and disease? I have a friend of mine. Well, I have several who are struggling with a horrible disease, and it's eaten them away. And they try and try and try, and they're doing everything that medicine knows how. But the end game is already determined for my friends, and they can't stop that. Wouldn't you want to live in a world where that never happens? Where children don't cry because they're hungry, and where adults don't work themselves to death trying to get ahead and still don't make it? Wouldn't you like to live in a world where there's no crime and no war and no worries about that ever happening? God offers us an alternative to this world. And all we have to do is live a godly life. Do what he says. You don't know what he says? Hey, I'll make it simple. Go back and read Matthew 5, 6, and 7. You do those things, you're in good stead. So today, this Friday, at the end of 2 weeks, I'd like you to think about your life. And I'd like you to think about the power of God and how much he offers to you and to me if we simply decide to live a life that reflects him. Well, thanks for listening. I wish you the very best. Have a great, great weekend. But if you have a need or a concern, let us know. We'll do whatever we can to help meet your need. Thanks so much for listening. I'll be back on Monday. Whole different idea of things to talk about. I wish you the best. I'll talk to you then.